Good evening and welcome to the Select Board meeting for Monday, January 8th, 2024. It is 6 o'clock p.m. We're in the Southwick Town Hall Select Board Conference Room, and let's roll through attendance here. In attendance, I have myself, Doug Moglen, Vice Chairman Jason Perrone, Diane Gale, Chief Administrative Officer Carl Steinhardt is on Zoom. In person is Assistant CAO Nadine Signoni, and Lisa Anderson is in the other room. If you would please join me in doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Jason. Yeah.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
At 6 o'clock p.m., we have public comments. If anybody has any public comments that they'd like to address to the Select Board for items that are not on the agenda, now is your opportunity. We'll acknowledge the room first. Anyone? Sir, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Roger Cataldo for Beale Street. I'm here to make which is Crestview Trucking. As a former PCO, as a traffic control officer, they violate the safety code of operating machinery on the town of Southwick property. Also, I want to inform the board that I've contacted OSHA in regard to this incident. So I'm finished with that.
Anything else?
That's it.
Thank you, sir. Anyone on Zoom? Hearing and seeing none. Let's acknowledge payroll warrant number 2414 dated January 2nd in the amount of $289,207.08. Acknowledge and approve open session meeting minutes from January 2nd. Do I have a motion?
You have a motion.
Second.
Roll call vote. Doug Moglen, aye.
Jason Perrone, aye.
Diane Gale, aye.
Acknowledge and approve executive session minutes from January 2nd.
Sorry, drop hands.
That's all right.
Me.
Here you are, sir.
Thank you.
I got my lotion.
Motion?
Motion made to accept the executive session minutes from 1/2/24.
Second.
Doug Moglen, aye.
Jason Perrone, aye.
Diane Gale, aye.
Thank you. Motion to authorize chair to sign Town of Southwick and Southwick Police Officers Coalition Memorandum of Understanding for a new F shift. Fairly ministerial, just to have a split A/B shift for a patrol officer.
Yeah, this is something the chief worked out with his staff and the Labor Council, so it's a straightforward adjustment, but it is something that had to be worked out, and it was agreed to with the union.
Carl, I've got no issue really with it, but was there a reason to come up with an F shift? I know usually these types of shifts are for an overlap and stuff like that. Was it to have an overlap during certain shifts, or just to address a need somewhere?
Maybe Lieutenant Banish, who's online, can help clarify that.
LT, you hear me? Can you hear me, LT? Brett, I guess like I said, I have no real issue with it. I just was curious as to, was there is it kind of like a coverage shift, an overlap shift, or? as far as this new, F shift? Can you hear me?
Can you guys hear me? I'm having issues with the phone.
Now we can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay. All
Can you
right.
hear us? Okay.
I can hear you fine at this point. So basically, F shift is going to be there so we can evenly distribute the officers amongst the 3 shifts. If we don't have that split, we do end up with some overages that would amount to 2 guys on one shift and 4 guys on another, rather than 3 across the board, with sometimes 4.
Okay, great. Like I said, I just was curious what, not that it's really my prerogative, it's the chief's prerogative to do it. I just was curious. I'm all set, sir.
Entertain a motion to authorize the chair to sign the MOA.
I will make the motion for the chair to sign that MOA.
Second.
Doug Mogul, aye.
Jason Perone, aye.
Diane Gale, aye.
I need a motion to authorize the chair to sign a contract agreement between the town of Southwick and the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission for the fiscal year 20 and 21 grant programs to extend services through the end of this year, 12/31/2024.
Right. I gave the board all the details on that through an email.
I'll make that motion as long as no one else has any
Nope,
concerns.
no issues?
Care to second it then?
Oh, second.
Doug Mogul, aye.
Jason Perone, aye.
Diane Gale, aye.
Okay. And Carl, I meant to ask you about this earlier, but I guess we didn't do it, but need a motion to authorize to surplus and sell the Southwick Fire Department 2010 Ford Explorer.
I'll make the motion to surplus the Explorer.
Oh, I thought you were asking Carl a question.
I kind of did, but the motion came on the floor.
Well,
Okay,
in terms
The
of,
motion seconded on the floor and
I'll
then
second
discussion.
that with
Okay.
Carl's explanation.
Discussion?
as you wanted to say, we used to stockpile vehicles and then do a sale, but now that we're not using the newspaper route because it's big dollars every time there's an article, an ad, it just we go through the web page and Channel 15 and other outlets to make parties aware that there are surplus vehicles.
Correct. I
We're
just
not
thought we had,
spending all the money we're going to make on the vehicle for advertising.
no, I thought we had actually done this for this vehicle previous.
You might have, and I thought about that, and I determined that even if we had, it would not hurt to do it again, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so then my memory may still be intact. Okay. So
It
the motion
is.
is made and seconded. It will move to a vote. Doug Mogul, aye.
Jason Perone, aye.
Diane Gale, aye.
Great. I need a motion to appoint Jean Thoreau as the new Graves officer.
I will make the motion.
Second.
Doug
Gene,
Mogul,
has-
aye.
yeah,
Sorry, go ahead,
Gene,
Tom.
Gene has been doing a great job helping John Andrews in that capacity for a while there. Well, John was under the weather, and now it's a logical transition, Mr. Chairman.
So this was, thank you. This was a position it's an appointed position. We had kind of left it alone in honor of Mr. Andrews, World War II vet, recently passed. So this would be a board appointment until our next cycle of appointments, correct? So we'll say through June 30th.
Yep.
So just to be clear on what we're doing here. So we had a motion in a second,
Yes,
correct?
I
So let's
spoke with
move to a vote.
Anderson too.
Doug Mogul, aye.
Jason Perone, aye.
Diane Gale, aye.
Thank you. We have a letter here from Library Director Lynn Blair, and she's asking for approval to deposit $50 in cash donations into the library gift account. So I would need a motion for same.
Make the motion to accept the $50 for the library.
Second.
Doug Mogul, aye.
Jason Perone, aye.
Diane Gale, aye.
And then this is authorization for the fiscal year 25 gas and diesel bids through Lower Pioneer Valley EC, Educational Collaborative. I think it's not here, but I'm still going through reading out all the acronyms
We just-
in her honor. So, Ingo, when you watch this later.
Now,
Carl, you wanna-
no, I mean, Paul Schroeder, Nadine and I talked to him the other day, and, now's the time to begin the process to authorize him to lock it in, and he'll watch it. And the day it makes sense to do it, he will lock in the commodities.
So who is the signatory? Or just
Well,
award this?
You're going to vote on it, and then Nadine and I will sign off on it.
So a motion for the CAO and assistant CAO to sign.
I will make that motion.
Second,
Doug Mogul, aye.
Jason Perron, aye.
Thank you.
Okay, next is, this was inserted, I believe it was in your chair mail, to assign the select board town report. You got a copy of the previous town report from last year. We have to write one again for, that goes into the annual report that's given out prior to the annual town meeting. So need a
It's also a
motion,
bylaw.
that too. Need a motion to assign a select board representative to write the select board town report.
I'll make the motion.
For a specific,
Are you looking for a specific?
Yeah, you have.
for the chair too?
Based on the historical preference, I'll make a motion for the chair to prepare the town report.
And I'll second that and be happy to offer assistance if needed.
Thank you. Doug Mogul, aye.
Jason Perron, aye.
Diane Gale, aye.
So new business. First is community development block grant update.
Yep.
We have a letter from Erica Johnson that we are eligible to apply in the next grant round. Carl, do you want to talk to this a little bit, or?
Yeah, I had a extensive conversation with her last week, and she's, it is ironic, obviously, you just signed the other two extensions a few minutes ago, or authorized them. And now, and then last year, we were awarded a contract, and of course, that has not been finalized yet through the state. And of course, these are federal pass-through monies. So these are generally not something that would be affected by the governor's 9C constitutional cuts on the budget today. So that is still working its way through the process, but it's not because of the town, it's on the state side. So now, moving past that, because that's already been determined what's in the content of that grant. It's just the administrative approval for the state to okay the town and the regional planning agency to enter into an agreement to administer it. The town has already entered into an agreement with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to receive the funds. So that's the next final thing before we start doing all the legwork on that. This process for the next grant is for us to start identifying some of the very same types of categories of funding that can help make a successful and competitive project, because Southwick is a competitive CDBG community as opposed to other communities that are in what are called entitlement communities. And I know Diane has sat through some hearings before with Erica coming in and going over these types of grant projects. I'm not sure if Jason had been on board yet, but as you can see, she's already identified the types of things that would be done. So she will be coming in. Let's see, she'll be doing the performance hearings at the end of January for those other 2 years that we just signed off on. And then she'll be coming in at a later date in February and in early March to work on the next grant application, which has to be filed the end of March. So this will give the board and her time to work out what types of categories of funding you might want to do, which of course would fall into public facilities, social services, infrastructure like Randy does on the different roads. And he's parlayed years where he was getting design money and then other years where he's doing construction funds. So one of the things that I'm very interested in for this other future grant opportunity is for a planned elevator replacement at Town Hall, because it does serve all income eligible people in the community. And it is something that does need to be put in the pipeline for replacement. It was identified in Jim Mazik's ADA Section 504 plan update from a few years ago. So it's well documented as something that needs to be done. And it would be a higher ranking type project. So again, that'll be just one of the examples that Erica will go over with the board members when she comes in for the meeting. So
Great.
there's no action needed on anything tonight, but it is for you to start thinking about what we need to be doing going forward.
Carl, we can make multiple applications, different projects,
You can have multiple components within the single application, Diane.
the dollar amount.
It's an application package, so
It
in the
has
past,
multiple,
we've done
yeah.
stuff for the food pantry. With
Infrastructure.
funding, they've done they got their van, we've done other some of the road projects
part
that
of
Randy
one
has one
blanket.
big community development block grant. So this is, federal government sends a block of money and then it gets pushed down and then broken out. The communities are usually the best decider of how to spend a
spend
block
that
of money. So that's why,
Okay.
and that's exactly, by definition of its term. So it's kind of it's a great opportunity for the town to get this grant money when we have a competitive package to put forth. And, projects like the elevator and also some of the road projects that we've done over on Veteran Street or whatever that are unaccepted public ways, but we're able to improve them via this process when we can't
Federal
spend
money.
Chapter 90 money or local money on. So that kind of thing. They're very, very
One
beneficial.
of the things that I caught my eye was the two where the master plan hasn't been, accepted yet. But I saw the Develop an Aging in Place program. I mean, that's something, and I thought Carl was gonna go there. Was that the one he would be interested in the most?
Oh, Jason, thank you. I didn't know you owed that one to me, Jason, but I appreciate it.
When you said it, I'm like, oh, here we go. I've got an opportunity. I don't usually do that to you, but
That's
had to.
okay. That's okay. We're just one big happy family.
Yes, we are.
Now,
But no-
Diane, you remember when you first came on board and we were going over all the different types of project files that CDBG was one of the ones you were interested in. And you
Yes,
and I spent a lot of time going through those different documents and how the funds come into the town, how they flow out, what purposes they're used for.
Correct.
And so this speaks to that exactly as another updated example of that.
Yep.
It's a good project to go through and, some of them are long lived, like we just extended the 20 and the 21 ones. Here we are in 24.
That was
We
the
may get
project.
another shot. Well, it just takes a while to
Yeah.
expend the monies that you do because of bidding or construction seasons or, whatever
COVID.
happens.
There was pandemic issues, there was COVID issues, people at the state were working out of their homes. Then there's been a change in the turnover of staff because of the changes of administration. So there's a whole host of things that are in play. And it might have also been the delay of funds actually being received by the Commonwealth from the federal government because these are pass-through funds. So you're dealing with bureaucracies.
Yeah. Other new business, Mr. Steinhardt,
No, sir.
Mr. Crump,
I have none. We're still working on the old stuff.
Ms. Gann.
Just to mention, you just mentioned, unapproved or approved roads, and I just want to mention, I did ask Randy, I had the reason to come across, Revere Road was approved in 21 at town meeting, but it is still unaccepted, and Randy was gonna look into that further to kind of push it through the funnel.
The map itself hasn't been updated.
No, it's still unapproved. There was something about the original conveyance of the subdivision.
Oh.
There's a little sliver of land
Oh, okay.
omitted or something.
Yeah.
So.
You're right. I wasn't sure if Mark Beglane may have been working on that with him, Doug. Just like
Okay.
the process they had to, remember they had to do a similar process on Robin Road.
Oh, yeah.
So he's
So-
gonna try to shake that loose. It was with the attorneys, I think, when it was last.
Okay.
dropped.
I know we had, that probably started around 2014, 15
Oh, it was
timeframe.
a while, yeah.
Well, the road acceptance piece, because I had spent the better part of 15 years going back through old subdivisions and getting roads accepted that for whatever reason, it never happened.
Yep.
Robin was one
I
of
did come
them.
across the list of still
Pearl-
unaccepted.
There's quite a few, and some of them, the other one is, that I had asked the planning board, because I'm no longer on that board, but when I was on there, I hadn't noticed it, but it's off of, South Long Yard. Like, the name escapes me at the moment, but it's a small subdivision with two small roads off of it.
North
Just for
Pond?
that- Huh?
Is that North Pond, Doug?
It's, if you're going toward Connecticut, it's on the left.
Oh, LaCurry Drive?
Yes, and the other little stub street off the end there,
Oh.
never accepted. Should have been,
Oh,
and, but the developer dropped the ball and needs to get done, right? Those people, it needs to get taken care of. So that's one that they're working on, but, we did Great Brook, we did that whole area over there. Just bunches of them, Lexington Circle, you name it, where the developer, for whatever reason, failed to complete the last piece. So the town picked it up and finished it off. So you want to get those roads accepted for Chapter 90 monies, and
Every
if you need to go out and fix, and you want to go out and fix them and maintain them, and you can't if they're not. There are certain roads that we can't just because of the way they're laid out, that they're just not acceptable.
mhm.
The ones that are, we should go get, and that one's a good one. I didn't realize that hadn't been done. So let's see what we can do to hasten that. Anything else?
Yes, I also stumbled across, Carl knows I love my solar roof, and my solar company, I get all their newsletters and I read them avidly. They did send me something that, municipalities can be eligible for, normally there's an investment tax credit, but municipalities can apply for direct reimbursement that's equal to that. Are we aware of that?
No,
So do you
we could
think,
look at it. I mean, I'd have to go over that with the auditor.
yeah, I was gonna ask if maybe we wanna run that by either our accountants on how it would work, and we have a utility
Okay,
consultant?
yes, yep, our Western Mass Electric Eversource community representative that interfaces with governments.
You care, this is.
So yeah, Diane, if you leave that with Nadine, I can look into that with
Absolutely gonna do that. One for you and one for Nadine, right here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then there are two other possible bonus credits of 10% that we may be able to apply for. And there's a site on the back of the sheet, Carl, that can direct them where to go check that stuff out. That's it for me.
Nadine?
Thank you.
I don't have much for new business, though. I just want to make you guys aware. I think you might have got an email from Mass Municipal, but the governor instituted some 9C cuts this morning.
Mhm.
There's a great list of what they are by dollars, but it's hard to find the budget line item that they came from. But most of them, or a good portion of them, are earmarked dollars. So they may
Yeah.
be net effectual to earmarks that were headed in our direction that now we're not going to get.
Mhm.
It will
Probably
be.
is.
Mr. Chairman, I sense from a phone call I got a few weeks ago that our earmark for the $25,000 for the fire department for equipment was going to be an issue that they were holding up. And when I asked the gentleman that question several weeks ago, he mentioned to me he didn't believe it was going to be through a 9C process, but they were just holding on things till they sorted some stuff out. And then today, we ended up having to see that in the newspaper instead of those agencies contacting their respective community contact people. So, and then this also would affect an earmark that the rec center is getting.
Hmm.
So, and that is within the governor's purview under the Constitution.
So we'll be finding out more about that in the next several weeks as to how.
Yeah,
that-
maybe when you see her in Boston, you guys can ask her about that.
Yeah, I'm sure she'd love to have a conversation with myself. But
Are they gonna take back the road money they gave us last week?
no,
No,
they were
that
very
was-
specific
that
that they're
was-
not touching the road money
Yep.
and that's from the millionaire's tax.
Yeah, that's from the
Yeah.
$1 billion from the millionaire tax.
And then
Yeah, and then they
the,
all moved out, so now we don't have
well,
any money.
enjoy it while you get it,
Right.
because they won't be here anymore. Right.
Don't worry, Randy will be programming that and giving you a recommendation to put it into a project soon.
I mean, we
Correct.
all thought it's coming, you know?
Yes. But then the other shoe will have to drop because the only way to fix it is, I mean, it's a spending issue as much as it is
Yeah.
a revenue issue. Okay, other new business? Anyone before we go on to old business? Old business, police chief internal recruitment process. We have, first order of business was we were gonna go over the job description tonight.
Yeah,
And-
I did give you some edits to it.
Yep.
And I, I met with Diane this morning, and the police chief is also reviewing it, and I think he'll be coming forward with some recommended adjustments to Nadine and myself to give to the board members.
Okay, do we want to go over
And-
any suggestions that we have, or do you want us to send them all
I
to
mean,
you?
no, well, we can, I mean, obviously, he'll give us stuff, but some of the issues that might be modified by the board in the job description would certainly relate to the ability to do the posting, because it might change some of the duties or qualifications of who can post or who can submit.
Correct.
So if there's something you want to look at in the current job description that you have now, you certainly can do that, because I know myself and Diane already looked at it. I'm not aware of what the other members of our panel here have looked at, but some of it was just updating it, and then other parts, substituting new titles and things like that. The chief's double checking the different laws. But if the board wants to talk about issues relating to the residency requirement or the stuff related to required and preferred experience and things of that nature, this would be the time to be doing that before you contemplate finalizing it. And then the posting is a straightforward thing after this is done.
So I have, if I may, so
Page 1?
now there's some Scribner stuff that I'll just send back. That's grammar and stuff like that we can all just turn in. I guess I wanted to call attention to the residency requirement, which you just brought up. I believe under the contract we have right now, there was accommodations made in that, and we should probably have that in the posting
Yeah,
such that,
proximity to the community.
and I'll leave it to discussion as to what that should be. The current chief lives in an adjacent town. Previous chief lived in town. Previous chief to that lived close to the Southwick border in Westfield. So I think we should have a probably some kind of statutory mileage deal as the crow flies to the police department. I don't know.
Not the road, you mean not the road miles, but the over the land?
Correct. I mean, as the crow
Air
flies, I think
miles
they
is
call
what
it,
the
right?
act-
Yeah. And make it a radius, because then it, that kind of
Generally,
works out.
I know the way civil service does it is usually 15 miles. There are situations where in the, especially in this, financial climate, I don't want to restrict us to people that, so all of a sudden we have a candidate that, and we say no because I'm not gonna, I'm not.
You don't want to limit your pool.
I wasn't, yeah, I agree with that, Jason, and as far as.
I would love to, if it was but financially it's become really unfeasible or infeasible, or I forget which one I need to use.
Yeah, no,
Either one
that's
of those, we got your
good
point.
point,
I
Jason.
wasn't necessarily in favor of naming a miles, but a reasonable mile,
Yes, a reasonable radius.
yeah, and
Yeah.
time in an emergency situation.
I would guess, and that's kind
However
of what I
that
came
gets
up with.
worded.
Yeah, because it's, I don't know, I,
If you say
Either way.
15 and they're
16,
16.2,
yeah,
they're out.
right.
No,
I just, and I just, with the current,
reasonable would probably be the word I would go with.
okay.
And like we
Okay,
just said, with
so,
current financial climate, I can't expect somebody.
No, I hear you, but I'm trying to, I always struggle with reasonable because my
Yeah,
definition
that's
of
exactly.
reasonable and then the person's
It's a
definition
subjective
of
term,
reasonable,
yeah.
and if there was something where they needed to get here forthwith, you have to define what's reasonable. So
Mhm.
I don't know what that would be. So that's why I thought with air miles stat, because I didn't want to get into the debate of this guy lives here and he's actually miles less, but the way he's gotta go is longer, so I just was gonna go with air miles just to keep it simple for your term. Statutory, or as the crow flies, but
I mean,
Either way.
time-wise, they're gonna be flying here.
Yeah.
I didn't mean flying, but they're gonna be going
Yes.
with their lights on,
correct.
so.
So you wanna make that reasonable.
The chief is, you could say the chief is required to reside in the town of Southwick or live within a reasonable radius to the town border within 1 year of his or her appointment as chief, or do you want to say within a radius of X air miles?
Generally, most of your candidates are gonna come from where we're doing internal, obviously.
Yeah.
They're gonna come from the region already, so I don't think it's a huge thing right now. I don't think we'd have to define I'd go with a definitive mileage. I don't know how you feel on that.
Say that again?
Do you want a definitive mileage number? I'm not opposed to using the term reasonable, open to interpretation.
Right,
However, because again, it's a subjective term. You can't necessarily.
because it's like one of those things, can you be here in 15 minutes, right? Well, okay, depending on where you are.
In the
Yes,
weather, in the weather.
Yeah, the weather and
I mean, they
everything
may
else,
not
right?
be home,
Well,
and they're
well,
beyond
but that's
15
even if they lived in the town of
minutes.
Southwick and, you know what I mean? But I mean, in the normal course of business,
I think that's, obviously, we both focused on that one as an issue.
what do you think, 15 miles?
Trying to think, I'm just,
Think how far you could go in
No.
15 miles from here.
I'm calculating in my head, you know, based on officers that I know from the area that are not necessarily local to their town, so I'd say 15 to 20 is reasonable to me.
15 is what, Chicopee?
Trying to think. Oh, actually, if I can bring up the map, let me do it.
So you're thinking, Jason, within a 15 to 20 mile radius to the town border?
I think that's too far. More than I talked myself out of it. I think it's more like 10 to 15 on the outside. Because like you said, 15 miles could be north end of Westfield, down into
Well, if you go straight air miles, it's only
Enfield.
37 miles to North Adams,
It's
so
like 13,
37 miles
it's
to
like
North End.
13.
if you go straight air miles.
so we're then
There's
so
something
there,
crazy.
I'm backing down from 10 to 15 miles.
Okay.
I'll leave it to you
It's like
guys to come back
13
to Carl.
Bay.
Right, so I think at that 10, maybe at the 10 number, I'm going even lower. And again, looking at the universe right now, this doesn't pose an issue, but I think we should,
Mhm.
from a consistency point of view, we should be consistent.
If it says reasonable radius, 10 to 15 miles in parentheses, it's still a guide and it gives you just a tweak more room, right?
She's right, you know,
I'll take Miss Gale's recommendation.
because I had wrote within 10 miles of Southwick Police Station. That's what I had for my notes.
I know,
So,
Jen, I'm
that's a big difference. Are you saying to the police station or the border? Because that's another 5 or 6
Yeah,
miles.
well, that's the thing, in the civil service world, they use a straight line airline from border to border. So that's,
So I'm okay with the reasonable in paren, 10 miles,
it gives you
and
the
then you
option
can have a
to,
discussion.
yeah. That's fine.
I also had that, and I don't know if, I think we can do this, is that the police chief must remain a fully qualified police officer under the current standards with the MPTC and post.
I was gonna say post, yeah, you're not getting by that one, so.
Well, I've seen it in other towns where they hired someone who was not a police officer to be their police chief. But,
That's interesting.
it was right in a neighboring community to the south.
Oh, the other state?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep, he didn't even have a license to carry
Wow.
in Connecticut.
That's,
So I'm assuming that if you do that, then it comes with the license to carry requirement as well, but that's the only other note for requirements that I had. And then I wanted to bring back to the board discussion. I guess we should, if we want to talk about if they need to remain a qualified police officer as to remain, to apply for
Under the post requirements.
the post requirement.
because that covers your MPTC.
Okay, well, let's go back to the mileage one, Doug. So when you said a reasonable radius, and then you had said, we originally were saying 10 to 15 miles in parentheses, you were thinking just 10 miles at that point now.
Sure, because it's reasonable gives us a lot of.
Okay, do your other two members agree with you on
Yes.
Yes, as long as
Okay.
we have the capability of discussing it otherwise.
it? Okay, I just want, and that's to the town border, which reflects Jason's talking about the civil service standard from border to border.
That's called building consensus, my friend.
Agreed.
All right, well, I'm just making these changes because I'm gonna, either Kim or Nadine's gonna draft a new updated version of this so the board can look at it, so they can endorse it to become part of the posting attachment.
Great. And let's go back to page. Three. This is,
Are we making any changes on page one? I mean, we're all over the place. We should just stop on page one.
Well, that's because Doug started.
I did,
You
I
can
said I had
start,
most,
we'll fill
okay,
in.
so on page one, I had all Scribner kind of stuff that I can just give to Nadine and, where it says Board of Selectmen and someone had already written on here, substitute select board as needed.
I did that, yeah.
And insert the new date, so.
Well, I also wanted to make sure we understood that the chief, along with the fire chief, are, members of the regional dispatch center, along with the CAO. So they're no longer supervising the employees under that other entity. They're dealing with the direction and the operations as a board, a governing board.
You just went to page two.
No, that's on page one. That's on
No, that's on the first line.
operate. Turn the
Oh,
page.
gotcha.
You're on the poster.
Okay.
So we're,
The markup, the
That's
markup.
on page two. Gotcha. I got it.
Okay.
okay, and I also mentioned this morning that harbor master is not included in here anywhere.
Doug, are you smiling about the harbor master role? Or?
Yes, because we've talked about it a few times and I had it in my notes as well, but then good catch. And, we've talked about that in the past. I think,
We can just put that under, like, we can move on page 2, item 25, move that down to 6, and we could just say, acts as harbor master pursuant to all state regulations and laws for that function.
correct.
And is that able to be, I don't think I asked that question this
That's
morning.
what I
Is
was
that
gonna
able
ask.
to be delegated to another officer? Or is it required to be the chief?
Well, he delegates by his very nature, just like you do. You have massive delegations of authority, organizationally.
The short answer to your
So
question
it's
is
not
yes.
required, okay, that he be it. Okay, anything else on page one?
I have nothing else on page one.
Neither did I.
Page two. I have nothing till 19.
18, I thought we just might throw in cannabis now that it's legit. With the list of light, but limited to light, liquor, auto, and cannabis. The three big things. Or marijuana, however you wanna.
Oh, so
Later.
Diane, right after the word limited to liquor, you're going to say comma marijuana,
Exactly,
Comma, auto.
and then and auto.
Mhm.
correct.
Okay, so we'll make note on that.
I mean, the term all covers that.
Yep, but let's just say it.
But
It's
those are
there.
specific licenses now that we're gonna have.
I understand. I'm just,
Actually, do we actually have a license for that?
for the,
We're not actually a licensing authority for that, are we,
We
Carl?
will be.
Well, but
We have an
That's our
HCA, but
process.
not a license.
but the HCA, I think, is going to give you all of that anyway. So
yeah,
I don't think you're hurt by adding that.
All right,
that's fine.
no objection. At 19, there's a space in effective in this.
Yes, there is.
I got nothing until 23.
Shoot, go.
19, it's now the Southwick Tolling Granville Regional School District, STGRSD. And
Sorry.
And you would develop plans to accomplish this, because there's more than one plan involved with all of these boards and department relations. And 25, sorry, that should be select board. But that's everywhere, that's already been underlined.
Right, and that's also the number new 26, because we added the harbor master language to become the new 25.
Correct. Correct. Anything else on page 2, Diane?
Nope.
Page 3.
Item 4 under page 2, that's another select board on where it says CAO and Board of Selectmen, so that's another SB.
Correct. Right, it was already underlined and asterisk. I kind of figured it was gonna get covered. 3, page 3.
Yep.
Any changes there, Diane?
Nothing.
There is, before Carl notes it, number 13, that'll be select board. I want to call your attention to educational and prior work experience. This has gone back and forth over the years. Just for discussion, that there's no requirement at this time for the chief to hold a degree under the requirement for the posting. Obviously, it's preferred to have a master's degree. This current chief was kind of a unique, had a unique vocational background that enabled his ability to elevate himself to chief through military experience. So I'm not opposed to leaving as is. I just wanted to call it to your attention.
That it is not required. Right
Correct.
now, it is not required.
It is not. Under this job description, it's not. You know, and we've had, and the reason I bring it up is we've had significant discussion over the years, including very recent around, it's in the police officers, the union contract regarding education incentive to incent officers to go and get degrees in related field, related degrees to better themselves and to put them in a position for command experience. So I just wanted to put that out there.
I have a motion.
Would you like to see it required?
I would not, because I think,
I would not either.
I just think, I think having it being the preferred, I think it's gonna sell you, says a lot to you. And then if you had, just like with the, almost, I don't want to trivialize it, you know, the mileage requirement is not the same thing.
Yep.
But if you had a truly unique candidate that had a unique set of skills that in lieu of,
I agree.
I do you
You could
consider,
have a
I think
lieutenant
we-
colonel that comes out of the military.
I think we all
Correct.
agree on that.
And that's his background, but doesn't have necessarily, I take that back, not a lieutenant colonel, but a high ranking NCO. You know, so, and obviously, like you said, with Chief Landis's situation, military background, so, and I'm gonna tell you right now, I know plenty of police officers that don't have degrees that are excellent police officers,
no doubt.
so.
Mhm.
I was one of
So I
them.
think we're all.
I think we're all in agreement. So that's all I had for
Yep.
3.
Yep.
Anything else on 3?
So you're not, okay, so you're good with the stuff under section E.
Yes.
Yes. Page 4, we beat G to death. And interesting note, your residency requirement becomes 10 miles north, east, and west of Southwick because they must hold a valid Massachusetts driver's license at all times in order to perform their requirements.
That is true.
Your ball.
I really got nothing else. I did like your, must remain a police officer status, valid certified status.
Yeah, I think we're gonna put that probably under required. That's
Mhm.
the place to put that word. I have chief, let's see, will be maintain a fully qualified officer under mass post requirements. And then you had MPTC. Now that's more of a training institute with.
No, I think the post is good enough.
Post covers that. You have to be,
Yeah.
you have to.
Okay, so I'm not right. I'm not going to cloud it because the other one's more of a training institute.
Correct.
That's all I have.
There's something wrong with the first line of I.
Oh, he struck that
It's already crossed out. I
Yeah.
crossed it off too, so I don't know if it was already there. Yeah, I don't even know what that is.
I
I
can't-
think he meant- that's his
I put a
mention.
version of this in your mail folder, Doug. So somewhere this is in your mail folder. The
I
version.
have it. I wrote on it.
He already did that.
Yeah, okay.
So you wrote over my line. You scribbled my line again.
I
Okay.
crossed off your line. Thank you.
But I am trying to figure out what word that might have been.
I
I have
am too.
no
It's
idea.
driving
Looks
me
like it was
crazy.
maybe jumping at one point, require
Lifting?
walking,
Lifting?
lifting, jumping, stand, I don't know.
It
I don't know.
probably said swimming.
Is that a J?
That'd be
Swimming, yeah,
wrong.
if he's a harbor master, he's got to swim, Diane.
Exactly. Unless he delegates it,
I
which
can't
is
wait
his
to see.
right.
Oh, I can't wait to see the agility test for the applicants for chief. All right. Anything
Don't-
else on page?
You know, in
4?
terms of those issues, once Nadine and Kim start looking at this, I'm sure if there's other, whatever those words need to be, they'll put it in there.
I'm sure. We will.
Doug, did you want to, usually you're big at like, under the physical one on the bottom of that first paragraph, it says computer and then it says typewriter. I think, weren't you taking that out of other job descriptions?
I did, but I wasn't the hill I was gonna die on for this one.
You want to put an abacus in there?
No,
They need to
Yeah.
unjam printers.
yeah, right. No, I think this is fine. And
Okay.
there's no, everything else proposed covers a lot of the police officer aspect of it. Because
Okay,
this is certainly a player coach role, right? So,
right. So what you can do is you can either have this come back to you at a future meeting, or you can adopt this as amended, and we can make sure you all see a copy of it. And then once people tell me that it meets what we've just worked out, then we could attach it to a posting.
I'm good with that if I can have a motion from the floor for that.
I will make the motion to work on the posting
With this
as amended,
As amended.
With this job description,
Job description.
job description for the posting. Yeah.
because it's gonna take, we still gotta run this by a few people, so
Mhm.
maybe we could post this by next week and then have it, start the motion. So, does the board want to give the CAO the latitude to do the posting date and the due date as long as they follow the same type of, let's see, was
Pending.
originally posted on an October 27th, it was due November 17th, so that was what, 3 weeks? That was 3 weeks. Last time it ran 3 weeks.
Mr. Steinhardt.
Yeah.
I have, just parliamentarily, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Let's clear the vote and then give you that authority. So we have a motion and a second to accept this as amended. A motion was made and seconded. It'll be a roll call vote. Doug Moglen, aye.
Jason Perone, aye.
Thank you.
That's done. Now I'd entertain a motion to give the CAO the latitude to post the vacancy with the job description and to set the date of posting and the due date.
And you want it to be a 3-week interval like it was last time, Mr. Chairman?
Borough, we're giving you the latitude to set those timelines accordingly.
Okay.
I will make that motion, pending, obviously, putting eyes on it and reviewing it.
Second.
Doug Moglen, aye.
Jason Perone, aye.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Further discussion on police chief internal recruitment process, internal posting, job description, and use of consultancies. I think we're just at the and number. And I think you had some paperwork, Mr. Perone.
Again, something is out here for you. Just a couple of the different studies on it. People have asked, Ms. Gale, mostly, why I think, it would be a good, fit. None of us here are experts. It gives us an unbiased expert assessment, to come in and look at our internal candidates, which, as I've said before, we have plenty of qualified candidates. This was never about wanting to go outside. This was just about wanting to give the opportunity all of our officers to present themselves at their best. And to have that someone come in with that unbiased review, I mean, some of the reasons, it helps, it's gonna help validate that selection. We're investing in a person, and if we're gonna invest in that person, I think it's a small price to pay to have someone come in, that can give us some background. Some of the other things that, they've done is, gives us an opportunity in some cases, that we could have a public reception for the candidates and present them to the public prior to. There's so many opportunities that are out there. I think as I presented to you, Ms. Gail, Ms. Moglen, in the study that I gave you, this is a process that can be molded to whatever we want it to be. I spoke with, Alan Gould from MRI. I spoke with, was it Paula from this, Police Legacy? I think it was Paula initially. And I spoke with, Russ Stevens from Public Safety Consultants. Even in the civil service world, and I hate constantly using that, they've started to go this route, not just for promotional, but also for entry level. And lower promotional levels. Civil service allows, we all know that system, maybe actually I shouldn't say we all know it, but that system is antiquated. It had its day. It has a lot of drawbacks. It has a very, very few positives. And this is something I'm gonna stand on top of the hill for. I want, these guys are gonna have to think on their feet. And they do already, but I want to hear from them, and I want to hear from other people. And I know you had questions, so I'm waiting for them.
Did you get any information back from
What-
public safety consultants and MRI?
They have emails in. I spoke with them on the phone today, so any questions that you may have, I may have the answers for, I'm not sure.
I
I know you were looking
rattled
for,
off most of my questions. I think all of
obviously, the
them
big
last
thing
week.
is, if this is something
Did
we,
you share those questions I sent back to you?
I don't think I got the specific questions unless they were attached to an email and I didn't see it.
I emailed them to him
When?
to share with you guys, like, I don't know, midnight one night last week, Tuesday.
Did you see anything? What was that?
I had sent Carl my questions to share with you guys. Did you get that?
Pretty sure anything that would have been sent, we would have forwarded on, yeah.
You said you were going to, but
Yeah,
they're looking like they've never
Probably.
seen it.
I probably did.
I
It's
did.
been a long week
I
already. and
actually
it's only
saw
Monday.
I
I
wrote
got the
down what
cannabis
you had
ones.
asked. And I know we've talked about, like I said, this is a moldable process. We could just simply hire them to write the questions and give us a rubric.
I mean, I can read them to you now, I guess, if I pull up the.
Yeah, if you
info,
pull
or
them up,
you want- or
if I
you
can
want
answer
Carl
the,
to just send them on.
no,
to you.
if I'd
What
like,
do you
if
prefer?
there anything I don't have the answer for, I'll get it for you.
I am, well. I guess there were questions to each of those firms.
Regarding
As
the,
to, what
the
are we
chiefs-
gonna get from their evaluation? What report are we gonna get? What tools are we gonna get? Are we
What
gonna
we
know
want.
questions
what we want.
they've asked?
We can have input on all of it. We're allowed to do that. And we're allowed to do anything. We're paying whatever if this is something we do, that's the big thing. I want a cost assessment. I want to see, if it's worth the value. To me, it is. And again, it's a moldable entity. I spoke at length with Mr. Stevens. His company's actually the one that wrote the questions for the Westfield's recent chief selection. And to answer your questions, I know some of them are mostly what do we get out of it? Whatever we're looking out of it. And it gives you an opportunity to look at people that are coming up in the leadership ranks. And personally, I'd like to see something like this right from the bottom up. I know it's a money thing and that's problematic, but I wouldn't mind seeing, even if it's just an oral board, like I said before, because I've, we usually only have 3 to 4 candidates that come in. It takes, to me, one of the things I campaign on was transparency. It also takes some of the onus off of us and gives the people to have a little bit of input. This person is going to represent the community as well as the people that are here. So I personally think that there should be some, and a lot of the people I've spoken to are very for this.
I personally want to see their faces when they are asked those questions. I want to evaluate their stature.
MRI's actual process is actually, they would come in here. One of the procedures they do is they could either do a full assessment, or one of the things they could do is they prepare the questions for us, as well as take questions from us and mold them to what we want.
I just don't understand. I feel I'm going to lose an advantage
How?
when I'm not asking those questions or you're not asking
We're-
those questions.
we're
and I'm
still
not
gonna be
watching and feeling.
We're still able to ask those questions.
Then they're repetitive and they've already answered it once.
I just, from where I come from on this is, I wanted to hear it out because I thought that there was a germ of an idea underneath it. But I'm with Diane on this. I think I've had the privilege of putting on 2 chiefs and extending 1 chief prior to that. And I think I learned a lot from the interview itself and knowing, excuse me, sir, the time for public comments over. We've gone through this process and I think that we're going to be in the best position to make that determination. And I think we have a lot of background knowledge on the Southwick Police Department. And like I said, the universe is relatively small.
Mhm.
Unlike where we brought in on the fire chief process, or even a previous deputy fire chief who's now our fire chief, we didn't know those folks coming in. And so they came through an assessment center and then to a search panel. And so it kind of took the field and narrowed the field down. And then the search committee from a larger panel, sent 3 back to the select board to interview. I had the privilege once of being on the fire chief search committee. And I don't know that we ever really even saw the assessment data that was used as the gatekeeping piece for the applicants. And then certainly as a select board member, I know we didn't get the whole package of assessment center stuff. As a select board, we had an interview amongst the 3 candidates for fire chief, and the select board selected their candidate and we hired the gentleman. If we were to go through this process and find no candidates for police chief, then I would absolutely have to do it.
I don't even think.
I don't, but we kind of went down that path. So I just wanted to, then you have to go and look at getting someone like an MRI or something like that to kind of come back and say, okay,
Absolutely.
now we've got to narrow the universe because we have no idea who's applying here. So I think I don't see it at this moment. I just don't. I think for, in the future, if the department were larger and the universe was larger and we had put forth the budget to do it and we kind of had a more defined answer as to what you're going to get, because I'm with Di on this too. I just don't see what you're going to get quantitatively that's going to make it be influential to the overall process. If there was some kind of, like you said, a rubric or an ABC, and I'll be honest, when we went through the last set of interviews for actually 2 chiefs ago, the LT put on the interview of his life and made it an interesting proposition because everything had kind of been set up. It looked from organizationally, it looked like it was going in a certain direction. And then coming out of the interview process, you were kind of scratching your head. And then it also set the table for, the current chief for how he did. And I think part of that was based on how he performed during that interview in the subsequent appointment. So I think we're in good shape with where we are, and I don't particularly see it needing to go through the process and the expense, given the relatively small universe that we're talking about.
That's fine.
I have really a lot of confidence in the skills that we each possess. You with your knowledge in that field, and I, coined Doug the historian about the progression of that department. And I have interviewed and hired a lot of executives in fields I didn't necessarily have the street knowledge. And have not had a failure except for one,
Well, there's remedies for
but I
that.
can fire them too.
There's remedies for that.
I fired them too.
There's remedies.
So I think
well,
we have a lot of strength.
I agree. Well, we've talked about this, not breaking public meeting laws, where I believe I'm called the wild card and you called we had different names for each of us, and that's me. I'm the wild card. I mean, I'm gonna throw that out there. This is just, something that I felt strong about, and I respect the board's decision. I have no problem with it.
I'm good. I think, and I think it was good productive discussion. I learned a lot. I think it's something that, we need to consider, going forward in the future, especially, as if we are taking people from the outside, that these types of resources exist and what they do. I'm certainly gonna.
Well, that's the
Take
other
that
thing
under
too,
advisement.
our reserve world is gone.
Mhm.
So now you can't just always rely on, hey, here's so-and-so. So this might be something we start to look at down the road, at least walking in the door.
But they do sort of have an oral board for those new recruits, because they do have an interview with 3 or 4 people at a time.
Correct.
And I
It's
also.
just our people, but.
Right. And I also think part of this process is, and why I've been, a big advocate for the bench is, well, I mean, if you look at, we don't know the universe yet, but, one can surmise and say, okay, they've all been in the employ of the town for at least
Oh,
a
absolutely.
decade.
I know
And so we got a decade of knowing them at that point.
Obviously,
And even
I've got
for the-
some feedback, and
Right.
one of the, this isn't about, disregarding our men at all,
No, I get
men
it.
and women. This is just about, putting options out there, and looking at different things and different ways of looking at things.
I think this is proving exactly what you want to have proven, is that we aren't necessarily going to shoo someone in, and we're not necessarily going to agree, and we're going to debate the best qualities.
Yeah.
That's all I was looking for.
And I think
And you're,
this discussion is proving that.
yeah, and that's all this was really ever about. We've got great guys and girls, and I can't say anything, excuse me, bad grammar.
Right.
You can't say anything
She's in
negative.
charge of grammar, by the way.
Yeah, I've
Grammar's her
noticed that,
department.
so that's, and I've made my spiel, and
Okay.
we closed the folder on that one.
So, yeah, I mean, speaking to Diane's question, she did send that to me. It didn't specifically say, it was obviously about Jason's questions, but I did tell her that I was going to add it to this agenda on the 8th, and I do not see it in the mail folder, so that's on me.
Thank you, sir. All right, let's move along, because I said we were going to have a relatively quick meeting tonight. I have once again failed this board.
Still doing pretty decent.
SRO is budget, board evaluations and appointed progress.
That is with Carl and Nadine. I have no feedback back yet.
No, I don't think I'm as far through it as Nadine is.
Okay. HSIC IMA, sorry, Inga. For WG&E, for ISP?
Oh, boy.
I
There's
just, her
only-
head just
There's
exploded
literally only
somewhere.
2 words in there.
So the high-speed internet subcommittee is we're gonna schedule a meeting for next week.
really
based
only
on
one word.
The action we took
Word.
last week.
The
To
same word.
discuss the intermunicipal agreement with Westfield Gas and Electric to be our internet service provider.
And they are, Mr. Chairman, they are working on it. They did contact our office for additional information that we provided to the G&E because they were having a top executive level meeting about this last week after your board vote.
Correct. So we will convene a brief meeting of the high-speed internet sub to give them back the feedback from this board that they are charged now to go and work with the G&E on the IMA. Marijuana dispensary webpage posting, HCA process and template. Thank
Yeah.
you, Diane, for sending out that
those, yeah.
information. And I don't know, I didn't check the webpage today to see if we put anything on there yet. I don't think
No, we
have.
have not because we asked Ben last week and he was going to construct the draft.
Okay, well, hopefully he's
Now
quicker on that
we're
than the
still waiting
61A
for
stuff.
Triple C's. info.
I hope he's not going to reinvent the wheel and just modify mine a bit.
I hope that.
That's fine too. I'm good with that. In fact, I think we ought to have Diane give him a call.
There you go.
I can. Are you giving me that order?
You already have that right as
Yeah.
a select board member to call council.
Call anybody anytime you want, Diane.
I will.
Okay, hunting bylaw proposed related. We have not heard back from the police department as of yet. Review of land license. I need to set a meeting with Darcy based on our discussion to go back with that framework. That covered 61A because that's right ahead of that was done before the cannabis thing.
Should I ask that when I?
Why
call?
not, while you're on the phone with them?
Okay.
Town Administrator Recruitment Panel, I was notified today, this afternoon, that they have completed their posting and they're asking for us to post the job description for the CAO. And I sent an email to Nadine or late this afternoon
I got it.
to ask them to,
It was the challenges, right? Not the job description.
Correct.
The job
Yeah.
description, that's it.
not the job description, I misspoke, sorry, the challenges document, to have that posted on the webpage.
Yep, it should be
Um,
up tomorrow.
And then I also sent to you guys a copy. When I was on the MMA website this past week, I noticed that job description is or the
Mhm.
job posting is on that
Mhm.
website as well.
Mhm.
So I imagine it'll also probably be in the next issue of the Beacon.
Yep. No, I did see that too, Mr. Chairman. I just wasn't sure if I was going to apply for it.
So the challenges statement is they want that from you to provide to candidates? Is that?
No, they want it posted to the website.
Posted to the website. And if you haven't gotten it, I can certainly have a copy sent to you if you haven't seen it, certainly.
No park and rec meeting yet, so I haven't had the opportunity to talk to them, but if there's anything that the board is aware of that might fit into that parameters that they'd like me to put in for, I am the town's representative to T-Mobile on this. They're tip of the spear, and it doesn't necessarily have to come from one of the other boards or committees. If it's something we come up with that we think is beneficial and fits into those parameters, we can put in for it. I've tried to do a little bit of research on that sunshade since that's come up a couple times.
Mhm.
I haven't heard back. There's a few canvas and awning companies around here. Cause when I do a search on that, all these shade companies are, so just to get them out here, it's gonna cost significant money. Some of these tarp awning and canvas places do it. I'm just trying to get a hold of somebody to say yay or nay. And I know there are some regional, not necessarily local to the area that do it. So that's the one I'm kind of focusing on now, especially with where that came up initially as one of the two. But if there's anything,
No, I think it's a good idea. I hadn't thought of whom, so I would have started with calling somebody who does like restaurant canopy stuff and
That's-
ask for a line from
Yeah.
there and go from there.
well, I reached out Leisure Time Canvas. There's a company in Westfield that many years ago, they do the awnings and it's sunshades, and they make car cover, anything that does the large fabric like that. There's
Yeah.
boat covers, car covers.
Sure.
Some of these places will do just about anything.
Hmm.
We just have to come up with, what it's gonna cost, how it's gonna work, and, then there's the support structures that we gotta look into too. So that's why I'm kind of trying to find somebody who either A, can say, yeah, we can do this part, but you need to talk to that person to do this part, or find a all-in-one solution, which would be the easiest.
Hmm.
But we'll see.
Interesting.
And that's just to get quotes to do the grant application.
That's, yes, because I need, if you looked at it, I need quotes, I need certain parameters met by, do we have any sort of, some sort of match, and that's where I need to talk to Park and Rec.
Hmm.
You know, or I know if my sister has her way, she'll drive John Lawler crazy, so. And the rest of the Park and Rec, because she's been asking for that, I know, for quite a while. As well as several other parents that said, oh, God,
I
please.
think it's a
yes."
good idea, and I didn't realize that the implementation part would be the hard part. You know, when we were at, no, really, I didn't even think of that part of it. So I like with the, when we were
Most of them
talking about
are, the farther south you go, the more you find,
Sure,
obviously.
Makes sense. When we were talking about the pickleball, we just ran into a guy at Mass Municipal that's what they do. And so I gave them their card, and I don't know if they ended up using that company or not. I have nothing to do with it other than, here, you need a pickleball court. These guys have the recipe. I didn't know that a
You
recipe
can
for.
buy those at the clearance bin at Target now. They got entry level.
Yeah, you're right, but I mean, the court and the
Oh,
dimensions
okay,
and
yeah,
the
oh, yeah,
surface
okay,
and
yeah,
the,
that's,
you know,
yeah.
that whole,
The
and the lights,
actual-
they have
yeah.
plans and, you know, what you need to do below grade and all this other stuff. It's kind of a pickleball
Yeah.
in a folder type of thing. But anyway,
Okay,
carry on. Boarding committee onboarding and duty statement discussion. Does that go with the other thing?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
We keep saying that.
Liquor quota breakdown from State Alcoholic Beverage Commission. That's coming up in a week or so.
just a quick note on that. I have looked, I know we've talked about putting parameters in because we've talked about it in the past. There is a certain structure and way to do it. I've taken, as Diane did with the HCA's, I've taken some of the other towns that have a process. Really, it's just based upon notification, giving people the proper time and stuff like that to come into compliance with certain things, and then having a procedure to do what we need to do, if we need to do it.
And we are bringing in, I know it sounds redundant, just the scheduling didn't work for this week.
Yeah,
I had dinner at Tucker's last week. We were talking a little bit before the meeting and, she goes, what's this all about? I go, look, we're having everybody come in just to say hello, and been a while. We have some new members and just want to get everybody on the same page.
mhm.
And, so, one of the owners just had surgery, but, the other one was more than willing to come in. So we'll get that going and start inviting everybody in just for the old meet and greet. Discussion and approval of town clerk, internal job description and posting. Carl? You're on mute, my friend.
We did get some preliminary information from town council from 3 communities, but Nadine and I are going to be looking for several others so that we can arrive upon a dollar range on that. And one of the things we have to be cognizant of is the amount that some communities provide for health insurance, because we're at the lowest legal amount.
Correct. So do you need any action from the town, from? this board?
Not tonight. I don't feel like I'm ready to put that forward. And Nadine, do you concur with that?
I do.
Okay. Other old business, Carl?
I just wanted to make note, I believe the Beth Greenblatt in Colonial Power staff there, Denise Allard, we had a conference call with Jason and others a few weeks ago, and they did finish an updated RFP version, and I believe I emailed that to
I do have it.
I believe, well, they had sent it to you and I, Jason, but I believe I sent it to Diane and Doug.
Well, if there's grammatical questions, I know who's gonna find them.
Right. We do know. She'll.
That's kind of what I'm hoping.
But did you get that from me, Doug and Diane?
Yes, I did see it, and I defer to the experts in this.
Yeah, no,
field.
that's fine. I just wanted, in case it was more or less to show you that there was progress happening in that area.
There's
Good to
I took
see.
it that way, thank you.
That's how I took it as well.
progress there. It's once it gets out of our hands is where the progress gets slowed down.
Just like everything else.
Mm.
Anything else, Mr. Steinhardt?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Perone?
None, sir, at this time.
This
No.
guy? Nadine?
No, sir.
Okay, a couple of tidbits. One is, I want to thank the DPW and our partners and Buildings and Grounds for the work that they had to do over this past weekend.
Mm.
And for those playing at home, the winter storm grand total was just about $50,000 for 14 and a half inches of snow from 8 p.m. on 1/6. And snowing stopped at about 3 o'clock on 1/7. I think we were done a couple hours after that. But yeoman work, I know we had some challenges with contractors and stuff like that, but everybody stepped up and maintained Southwick's excellent reputation for snow removal operations
Yeah.
vis-a-vis our neighboring communities.
I can concur. Karen.
And just one other note, we talked about the 9C cuts. I was invited to attend and I was able to attend the Council on Aging meeting today. The topic of discussion was future senior center expansion. And what I did was I encouraged them to put a little group together to kind of outline what their needs and wants are. And talking about aging in place and certain things in that regard. That is certainly the trend in the Commonwealth and especially in Western Massachusetts is the average age is going up. There was a great article, by the way, in the Boston Globe, which is something you don't hear in the same sentence very much these days. But there was a good article in the Boston Globe in an op-ed column about population shifts in the Commonwealth, especially with folks in the 25 to under 50-ish age range, I believe, all leaving and the older folks staying, and it's creating, and the net increase in population was immigrant population in Massachusetts. But it did speak to this aging issue, but I encourage them to get with their finance committee liaison as well. And then we will come back with a designee from this board to work with them to kind of work up what that is, and then start to parlay that into, a future capital planning operation. I said, please don't come to us, in February needing $10 million in May, because that's not how it works. You've got to get that on the radar and then start to plan for those eventualities. And so they were very receptive. It was a very, very good discussion. That's such a nice group of folks that they're a joy to deal with. And I also encourage them to reach out to the CAO because there was, part of the last senior center expansion, there was some engineering work done for future expansion. And I believe, I'm not privy to all of it. Carl is going to know a lot more of it. It may have more to do with office space above it than future space.
It was vertical. It was at that time, it
Thought
met
so.
the design requirements for a greater load. So the what would have been a roof was actually another floor over it. The question is, we of course would have to make sure we'd double check with an engineering firm to make sure it would meet the current day codes.
Correct. And then the other,
That we would need underground parking then.
and the topic did absolutely come up.
Well, it's true, Diane. We're back to the parking issue again.
Exactly. So it did come up again. And then one other thing I did suggest, we're going to do a little walkthrough one of these days to kind of the downstairs area to see if some of that space can be better utilized for certain programs when it's not being used for other stuff today. And also was potentially programming the auditorium for certain things when it's not being used for other programs as well. Because that's a beautiful space and it's utilized very well, but it could always be utilized better. And now with the HVAC improvements that have been made in there, it's not either going to be freezing or boiling, or if you control the auditorium, you don't either freeze or boil everyone else out of the rest of the building now that it's separately controlled in theory. So
Right.
I think that's something to look at in the interim as they come up with some kind of planning for the
Yeah.
future. Let's make sure we're absolutely utilizing the resources that we have available to us today.
True. We have to be mindful of the other reserved uses, one of which being a cafeteria for the staff, and the other one, the activities and exercise room, which is part of the community's commitment to a wellness program for its people.
Absolutely. And one of the discussion, actually, I came up in discussion, we could take it offline because it's getting late, was can we better equip that and have it be available for others to use, say, senior center members, senior center visitors to use that stuff too, and I didn't know. I said, look, I don't know. That's not my area. We'll come back to you on that. So
Yeah.
we'll take it offline. That's all I had. We are going to have executive session tonight, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it's going to be brief, but we will have one. Is there any other discussion before the board tonight before we adjourn?
None.
Okay, so I have to read this so I think. Again. So folks, we are going to go into executive session. And then we need a motion to go into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, 2, and 3, and Chapter 214, Section 1B, Labor Council, Litigation Matters, and Strategy for Collective Bargaining with Police Union Coalition, Fire, IAFF, DPW, Non-Union Staff and Clerk, Union, UPSEU, and then move to go into executive session to conduct collective bargaining sessions with non-union personnel and not reconvene an open session. Move to go into executive session, conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel and not reconvene an open session. Declare that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the body and not reconvene an open session. Move to go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, and the chair moved to go into executive session to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and not reconvene an open session. Move to go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, and that the chair declare that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the body and not reconvene an open session. And the chair must declare that a person shall have a right under Chapter 214, Section 1B against unreasonable, substantial, or serious interference with their privacy, and the Superior Court shall have jurisdiction and equity to enforce such right and in connection therewith to award damages. We need a roll call vote to go into executive session. Doug Moglen, aye.
Jason Peron, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, folks.